one thing that a lot of people are concerned about in this coming budget is the so-called loan charge, which was designed to tackle tax avoidance schemes where individuals get income in the form of loans that are not repaid to avoid income tax. You've probably been aware there have been 7 suicides linked to the loan charge, other victims saying they've come close, others saying they're financially ruined. Isn't it time to admit families have had too much of this retrospective taxation and it needs to be addressed, Mr. Stride?
Well, you used the word retrospective there, Nick. My view is that these arrangements are not retrospective. In other words, the avoidance that you quite rightly pointed to may have occurred some years ago, but they were under rules that made those particular activities wrong at the time. And of course, the loans that are involved in this scheme, it's fairly aggressive tax avoidance schemes, are still outstanding in the present. So I don't accept that it's retrospective. But
it's an unprecedented 20-year period to look back.
Well, it's 10. It's 10 now because Sir Amyas Morse looked into this independently, had a big inquiry, and concluded that it was reasonable to go back 10 years in terms of when the activity actually first occurred. And so that's the position. And, I think we have to see these schemes for what they are. I mean, it's like me, instead of employing you and paying you in the normal way and paying taxes, saying, look, I'll pay you by way of a loan, which will go via an offshore low-tax jurisdiction, typically come back into the UK, you take it as a loan, it's never really a loan, there's no intention of repaying it. So and these arrangements are really eroding the tax base, and others are having to pick up the tax as a consequence. So they're not right.
You were quoted in November as saying that the Treasury Committee will not be doing any further work on the loan charge in the near term. When was that decision made, and was it made at a meeting?
Well, the committee has a number of meetings at which it looks at the kind of issues that it wants to pursue in the future, and we set out our programme accordingly. So we're currently looking at London Capital and Finance. So it was made at a specific meeting,
was it, Mr. Stride?
Well, there are a number of meetings that we have. We have private meetings just about every week, and we often discuss the kind of things we're going to look at in the future.
I remind the listeners, 7 people have taken their lives as a result of this. When was the decision made that the committee wouldn't be doing any further work?
Well, it wasn't a conscious decision not to do anything. It's more a decision of what the committee decides to do and decides to look at. And we feel that the coronavirus and the challenges there, the tax choices that the Chancellor is going to have to make. There's been a big scandal around London Capital and Finance that we're looking at the moment in the Gloucester report. There's so many things that compete for our attention. And so it's really a case of deciding which ones we're going to go with. And we take those decisions on an ongoing basis.
7 people have taken their lives. I mean, there does seem to be a possible conflict of interest. I, of course, remind my listeners you were involved as a minister bringing in the loan charge. You're effectively marking your own homework now, aren't you? It's because you chair the Treasury Committee.
Well, actually, I didn't bring in the loan charge. This is a wide misconception.
I'm grateful. Can you put me right on that?
I came in as a Treasury Minister when the loan charge was already in existence. It came in under one of my predecessors. But look, I mean, if the suggestion is that in any way, the committee is not looking at this area for any other reason than that we have a packed agenda and we have a lot of very important things to look at, such as the future of our public finances, such as London Capital and Finance. We'll be having the Chancellor appear before us next week to talk about the budget after it's happened. These are all very important things. Now, of course, there are many important things that will compete for our attention, but at the moment we have a forward plan that I think is right, and the committee is agreed upon. And it is a committee decision. It's not my decision as to what the committee looks at.
Right, OK, but you participated in the discussions, I'm sure, didn't you?
Well, clearly, as the chair of the committee, it'd be a bit odd if I didn't.
OK. So how many people voted in favour?
Well, it's not a question of a vote, Nick. I think there's a misconception here.
Well,
we have discussions. Well, hold on.
People are losing their lives. Many other people are financially ruined. It is widely thought, rightly or wrongly, that this is a taxation almost unprecedented how far it's gone back, and people are feeling that they have been victims. The key committee that could investigate this, you happen to chair it as well. I think it's fair to ask, what was the vote that allows this to effectively be put in the long grass for a little longer?
Well, can I just explain one thing before I come to that, which is Amyas Morse conducted a very lengthy, in-depth inquiry into the whole issue of the loan charge. He produced a substantial report. His recommendation was accepted by the government that the loan charge arrangements, I think all bar about one. So he had numerous recommendations, and one of which was that the loan charge arrangement should look back in terms of the activity that occurred about 10 years. So this has been looked at independently. And in terms of getting back to your question about a vote on the committee, that's not the way these committees typically work. So when we discuss our future programme, we have a discussion, And out of that discussion emerges the issues that we think as a committee we should be looking at. So it's not a question of going to formal votes on these.
Right.
As to your question as to whether I participated in those discussions, well, as I say, it would be rather odd if, as chair of the committee, I'd sat there and not said anything about the future programme of the Treasury Select.
You're aware that the Morse Review also said that the loan charge had gone too far.
It said that it felt that going and looking at activities that occurred beyond 10 years ago, that there was a sensible cut-off at that point, and that is what the government accepted. So my point, Nick, is that this has been looked at very thoroughly, very independently, and the loan charge itself has been supported. Now, there may have been amendments around that, etc., but it has been supported.
Right.
And what we're not focusing enough on in this conversation, I think with great respect, is what this is really all about. And some of your listeners will probably be slightly confused. This is
it's about 7 suicides, isn't it?
This is about a large-scale series of very aggressive tax avoidance schemes in which, instead of paying people in the normal way that probably you and I might be paid, i.e. PAYE, we pay our tax, the employer pays the tax. This is me saying to you, I'll tell you what, I'll do it by way of a loan. We'll send the loan out offshore to a low or zero tax jurisdiction, the Caymans or somewhere. We'll bring the loan back into the UK. You will receive the loan, and because it's a loan, not income, would assume that there's no tax to be paid, so the tax gets avoided, and that's not right.
No, I agree. I'm not seeking to defend
illegality.
Well, if
you agree,
because seven people have taken their lives. That's the number that jumps out at me, Mr. Stride. 7 lives gone as a result of it. I'm just suggesting, perhaps this Wednesday, could there not be an expression of leniency to these, not these individuals, but others? We don't want any more, do we?
Well, as I say, this is
more time. I'm not seeking to defend illegality. Just more time.
The HMRC has time to pay arrangements. They enter into with those who owe money that they should have paid in the first place. They have very generous time to pay arrangements. They've also said that they won't, for example, require somebody to sell their primary residence in order to settle the own charge. So there are all sorts of easements that have been brought in. But the fundamental point, Nick, is that, and I know this, and nobody likes to have have to pay tax, but at the end of the day, we should all be on the same basis.
And people listening I'm not who defending are hearing illegality. About this scheme, I'm just seeking to any poor individual, any poor soul who's feeling that.
I'm not saying it's illegal. I'm not saying it's illegal.
We won't want any more of these, do we? We want everyone to come to an amicable resolution with HMRC. That's what I'm seeking to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Okay. And part of the problem is, as this has dragged on and campaigners have fought this, there have therefore been delays in settling, and people have ended up, I think, and indeed there have been people even recently out there promoting these kind of schemes. And this is the problem. Unless you have the same level playing field for everybody, and it's fair for everybody, more and more of these things happen, and more lives, tragically, get blighted by getting lured into these schemes that don't work. And when the HMRC comes across them, I think it has a duty as a sensible tax authority to clamp down on aggressive tax avoidance. And I think most of your listeners would feel that.
Grateful for your time. Conservative MP and Chair of the Treasury Select Committee, Mel Stride.
This is